Hi, this is a quick movie taking you through how to configure the Winfluor software. So in the previous movie we've run through the hardware setup, so this time we're going to have a look at the software and how to actually get started. So you can see I've downloaded the latest version of Winfluor here, which is 3.4.4, and if I open this up we can get started. So first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to go to setup here where we can set up our camera and our illumination. So if we come in here and go to setup and then camera and systems, we'll get this dialog box here with various different tabs along the top for setting up the various different components. As you can see, I've got a Photometrics camera running via PVCam, and there are a variety of cameras that are supported inside the Winfluor software, including all of the Photometrics cameras and the Q-Imaging cameras and Princeton Instrument cameras and so on. And we have a few options here regarding settings in terms of the readout speed that we want, and then pixel size and the various other things down here. You can see that it's automatically found our USB 62211 or 6211 rather DAC card that we're going to be using for controlling the various different hardware components. And this is a 2-channel DAC card, so I'm going to select channel 1 here that I'm going to use for triggering my camera. So this camera requires an active high, so basically when we're taking images it's going to send a pulse to the camera to capture each frame, which is all good. So this is set up how we'd like it, and then if we go to the second tab here I can set up the light source. So as I said, in this particular setup I've got a Canon Opto LED light source, so I'm going to be using the 470 nanometer LED on this setup, but equally you've got options for a variety of different other illumination setups, from the Canon Optoscan monochromators and the TIL monochromator and SATA 10.2s and DG4s and various other different options. So for example, if I was to choose a monochromator, then you can enter in details here for the wavelength range and which voltage corresponds to which to create your chart and so on. So as I said, for this particular setup I've got an LED, so we're going to select that, and then all I've got to do is point my wavelength control output to be the other channel. So DAC 1 was running the camera, so we're going to use DAC 0 here for running our LEDs. So once we've set these two options here up, then we are good to go. So if I click OK there, then the first thing we need to do is to create a new data file, and this is basically where all the information is going to be written regarding the images. So I'm going to call this one number 4 because that works for me. And then finally, if we come into record here, then I want to record images and signals. And when I click on this, you'll see that I get 2 dialog boxes. So this one here is plotting my intensity for my region of interest. So you can see I've got my region of interest here on my screen, number 1, and you can see my region of interest size is 20 pixels, so it's averaging out. So if I put in a value of 1, for example, you can see I get a lot more variation because it's looking at a single pixel region. As I said, if I put 20 in, then it just does a better average out for me, which is much nicer. And then over on this side here is where I can set up my my camera and everything else before I start recording. So the record button's obviously here at the top. I can enter in first up my exposure time. So this is an EM camera, so this one's going at 30 frames per second, roughly speaking, at 512 by 512. So I've put in a 33 millisecond exposure time. But you have a variety of options here where you can enter regions of interest, or you can use binning. So for example, if I enter binning of 2, you can see it's shrunk it down to 256 by 256, and it said my minimum exposure time that I could use is halved, because obviously I can read out a bit faster. But if I go back to a region of 1, then it'll take us back to where we were before. This is an EM camera, so I've got various different EM gain settings here. So this is actually 0 to 100%. Now this camera has linearized EM gain and a read noise of around 50 electrons, so an EM gain setting of 250 is about where we want to be, which works out about 25% there. So that's the one that I've selected. So I'm happy with that. Under contrast down here, you've got a variety of different options. So at the moment, it's just displaying in grayscale, which is absolutely fine. But what we could do is I could ask it to display a false coloured image, or I can tint it green, for example, because I'm looking at JFP here, or I said I can false colour it and it'll give me intensity profiles and so on. But I like it to be black and white, so we'll leave it like that. If I adjust the focus, slightly here, and then the other thing that we've got is we've got an auto display range, so it'll just clip the histogram for us and make it look a little bit better. So once we've set up experiment how we want, and as I said, we've got control for our illumination here, so we can turn the light source on and off, and then obviously we want to make sure it's turned on when we're recording our experiment. Once we've set up everything here how we want it to be, then all we need to do is hit record, and you can see that now I'm recording a movie. So down here at the bottom of the screen, it tells me what the frame rate is and how long I've been recording and how many frames I've got and so on and so forth. So it gives me a bunch of details around down there, and you can see if I vary the intensity on my LED, you can see the plot on the graph over here on this side of the screen is going up and down, and if I actually auto adjust it then the image won't change too much, but you can see the intensity varying through my experiment as we go up and down. And then once you finish your experiment, then all we need to do is click stop. So you can see it takes us back to the start again. And what we can do now is we can come in here and go to File and then open data file, new data file rather, and we can set up for another experiment. Or what we can do is we can review the experiment that we've just run. So let's close this dialog box down, and then if we come into File and open data file, that was called experiment 4. So if we open that up there, you can see I've now got the same two dialog boxes again, but here I've got more options in terms of the analysis we're going to do, and here I can start again looking at the plots. So you can see I can play through my movie here, and you can see the intensity going up and down. And for example, I could drag a region of interest on and put that one there, and then if I tick fluorescence on this side, then as you see when I play through my movie, you can see how the fluorescence intensity changed over time. So I hope you found this movie useful. If you have any questions, then please contact your local Photometrics dealer.